I'm too good looking for my boyfriend, so I cheated on him, but now I regret it. I'm 24 years old and I have been with my boyfriend, Victor, who is 27, for a little over 2 years. From the outside, anyone would say that we have a stable relationship, we get along well, we rarely argue, we have plans for the future, and we share many interests. However, lately I cannot stop feeling that I am wasting my beauty by being with him. It sounds superficial, I know, but it is the truth that torments me. I have always been told that I am a very attractive woman. I do not want to sound arrogant, but since adolescence I got used to receiving constant attention, glances on the street, compliments on social media, invitations to go out, even some rather bold propositions. At first I saw it as something normal, but over the years I began to notice that most people treated me differently because of how I looked. Victor, on the other hand, is an ordinary guy. He is not ugly, but he is not someone who stands out either. His physique is quite normal, and although he takes some care of himself, he is not the type who goes to a gym or follows a strict routine. I would describe him as someone average, medium height, a build a little more on the slim side than athletic, short hair, and without a particular style. He does not attract attention at all. I met him at university when I was already receiving a lot of attention from several guys. The funny thing is that he was one of the few who never tried to impress me or approach me insistently. He treated me like any other person, without flirting, without trying to please, and without the need to stand out. That, at the time, captivated me. I liked his calm way of being, how he listened to me without interrupting, and the patience with which he explained things when we studied together. At first, I did not even see him as a potential partner, but over time I found it refreshing to be with someone who is not obsessed with my appearance. After months of friendship, I realized that he made me feel comfortable. We started going out and then became boyfriend and girlfriend. The relationship flowed well. He is thoughtful in simple ways, like remembering what I like to eat, making coffee when he knows I am tired, or sending me sweet messages when I least expect it. He has never been controlling. He gives me my space and trusts me. So far, everything sounds ideal. But as time went on, I began to feel restless. When we go out together, I notice that the stares always fall on me, and sometimes I feel that people see us and think, "What is she doing with him?" I do not know if it is my paranoia, but it makes me uncomfortable. When I upload a photo to social media, I receive hundreds of comments and reactions. Whenever he appears, people make subtle jokes or comparisons. I try to ignore it, but I am left with the feeling that the difference is too obvious. The worst part is that it is not just what others say, but what I am starting to think. I look in the mirror and see a woman who could be with someone more on my level, physically speaking. Do not get me wrong. Victor is not a bad person. On the contrary, he is a noble, hard-working person with values. But I cannot silence the voice in my head that tells me I am wasting my best years with him, that I could have someone more attractive, someone who is a better match for me in terms of appearance. Recently, something happened to me that made me feel guilty. We were at a gathering with some friends, and among them was a new guy that I did not know. He was one of those who enters a place and immediately attracts attention. Tall, athletic, with a very well-groomed style and a charming smile. I am not going to deny that he caught my attention. During the night we talked a little and I noticed how he watched me, as if he were interested. I felt it in his gaze, in his body language, and the first thing I thought was, that is the type of person I should be with. But immediately after I looked at Victor, who was serving drinks, laughing with one of his friends, completely oblivious to what I was feeling. It made me feel tenderness and guilt at the same time. How could I be comparing him? He did not deserve that, and yet I could not help doing it. I know that my insecurity has nothing to do with him treating me badly or not valuing me. Quite the opposite. Victor loves me in a genuine and transparent way. He has never made me feel less. He has never been jealous of me. He has never judged me. But that is precisely why I feel worse, because I think that I am judging him just for his appearance. The dilemma is that every day it weighs on me more. I get ready to go out and I feel radiant, but when I walk hand in hand with him, I feel that there is a kind of imbalance, as if we were a mismatched pair. And although I try to convince myself that the important thing is the emotional connection, trust, and stability, The reality is that physical attraction also plays an important role, and I am afraid that one day I will stop being attracted to him. Another thing that torments me is the future. I am 24 years old. I feel I am in the prime of my youth, and I know that I will not always have the same appearance. It terrifies me to think that I am wasting this moment in a relationship with someone who does not make me proud in a superficial way, even if he does value me internally. I imagine introducing him at an important event with more attractive people around, and I feel a pang of discomfort. I know it does not sound nice, and that is why it is hard for me to talk about it with someone close. I do not want them to think that I am frivolous or that I do not know how to value what I have, but this is the truth that is consuming me. I feel that I am too good-looking for my boyfriend, and that sooner or later that difference is going to weigh more than it should. I have tried to compensate for my thoughts by remembering his qualities. I tell myself that the physical fades and that what endures is character, kindness, love. But no matter how much I repeat it, the dissatisfaction does not go away. I have even surprised myself fantasizing about what it would be like to be with someone more attractive, how he would look by my side, how people would react to seeing us together. And that makes me feel like a horrible person, because I am looking down on someone who gives me the best of himself. Victor has no idea what is wrong with me. He looks at me as if I were the best thing that could have happened to him. He tells me that often and shows it with every detail. And I, instead of feeling lucky, feel trapped in a moral dilemma. Should I end the relationship just because I feel I could be with someone physically more attractive? Does that make me a superficial and ungrateful person? Or would it be worse to continue with him while deep down I feel dissatisfied? I do not want to hurt him, but I do not want to fool myself either. And here I am writing this, because I need to hear other perspectives, even if what they tell me hurts. Update. Hello again. I did not expect my first post to generate so many reactions, but the truth is that reading the comments left me with mixed feelings. Some made me reflect, others hurt me a lot, and others made me feel like I was a horrible person, beyond repair. The first thing I want to say is that I know perfectly well that what I shared makes me sound frivolous. Many pointed me out as superficial, ungrateful, playing with the feelings of someone who loves me sincerely, and I cannot say they are wrong. What hurts is to have it confronted so crudely, because it makes me realize something I have been avoiding. I am not as good as I want to believe. Some even asked me for proof of my beauty. I understand that they want to verify it, because if I am claiming that I feel too good-looking for my boyfriend, it is logical that they want to see it with their own eyes. But I cannot expose myself in that way. I do not want my face to be circulating on the internet nor my identity to be linked to this post. The only thing I will dare to say is that physically I look a little like Ariana Grande. I have delicate features, fair skin, large eyes, and long hair. Not identical, of course, but enough for several people to have mentioned it to me on different occasions. And although it sounds arrogant, I know that I am attractive. I do not need to validate it with photos. I have received constant attention all my life, and that is why this conflict exists. If I were an average person physically, maybe I would never have considered these doubts, but I am, and that is why I compare, I question, and I torment myself. But what I really want to tell you, and what actually originated this whole conflict, is that it did not arise out of nowhere. It was not that I suddenly woke up one day and thought, I am too much for Victor. Actually, it all started because of someone else. At my job, I met Donovan. He is 27 years old, the same age as Victor, but they are complete opposites. Donovan comes from a family with a much higher economic level. He always dresses in impeccable and designer clothes. You can tell that he takes care of every detail of his image. In addition, physically he is one of those men who attract attention without effort. Many say that he looks a bit like Robert Pattinson, and the truth is that he does have that intense gaze, a defined jaw, and a magnetic presence that cannot be ignored. Since he joined the company, he became the center of attention. Everyone talked about him, how handsome he was, how elegant, how charismatic. And I was no exception. I noticed him from the first moment, and what confused me was that, unlike others, he began to pay attention to me. At first it was subtle comments, that he liked how I looked with a certain hairstyle, that I had a charming smile, that he found my way of working interesting. I tried to take it as a simple gesture of kindness, but I soon realized that it was not just that. He looked at me in a different way. He sought me out with his gaze. Even in meetings, he sat near me whenever he could. I tried to keep my distance. I have a boyfriend, and although my mind betrays me sometimes with thoughts of comparison, I have always wanted to be loyal to Victor. So every time Donovan made a move, I rejected him in a respectful but firm manner. I told him I had a partner, that I was not interested, that it was best to keep things professional. The problem is that although my words said no, my thoughts said something else. I cannot deny that I fantasized about him more than once. I imagined what it would be like to go out with someone like him, how he would look by my side, how it would feel to kiss him. And those fantasies grew, even though I insisted on hiding them. The last time, however, things changed. I do not know if it was my weakness or if I was simply tired of repressing what I felt, but I agreed to go out with him. It was an innocent outing, as I convinced myself, just a coffee after work. But deep down I knew it was not. I knew I was opening a dangerous door. We met in a discreet place, far from the office. The conversation flowed naturally. He is charming, he knows exactly what to say to make me feel special, and that enveloped me. Little by little the chat became more personal, more intimate. And in a moment that I do not know how to describe exactly, it just happened. We kissed. It was not a quick or accidental kiss. It was intentional, deep, full of that accumulated tension that had been growing for weeks. And the worst or the best, depending on how you look at it, is that I liked it. I liked it too much. After the kiss, things intensified. We were on a couch, and he began to caress my leg. At first gently, as if testing if I would allow it. I was paralyzed between excitement and guilt. I did not stop him. And he continued moving up little by little, higher and higher, while I felt a mixture of nerves, adrenaline, and desire. It did not go any further because at the last moment I stopped myself. I do not know if it was guilt or fear, but I managed to stop him before things escalated further. However, although we did not end up having relations, what happened was already enough to mark a before and an after. Since that day, I cannot stop thinking about him. I cannot get him out of my mind. I tell myself that it was just a mistake, that it should not have happened, that the right thing to do is to forget him. But at the same time I feel that this experience opened my eyes to something I already suspected, that with him I feel an emotion that I have not felt with Victor for a long time. It torments me to recognize it, but the truth is that I increasingly feel that I should be with someone like Donovan and not with Victor. Not just because of the physical aspect, although that weighs heavily, but also because of what he awakens in me. With Donovan, I feel desired, admired, on a different level. With Victor, the first feel cared for and loved, but not passionate. And that makes me wonder if I am really with the right person. I know that many will say that I am a traitor, that I already cheated on my boyfriend, even if it did not get fully physical, that I do not deserve his love. Maybe they are right, but I did not want to lie here. What happened happened, and I allowed it. Now I am at a critical point. I do not want to hurt Victor, but I also do not want to continue with him just out of habit or for fear of being wrong. And if I am honest with myself, I think I have already hurt him, even if he does not know it yet. Because even though I have not told him anything, my heart is already divided. I do not know what to do. Part of me thinks that the fairest thing to do is to break up with him before this goes any further. But another part tells me that maybe I am exaggerating, that what I have with Victor is solid and real, and that leaving him for a fleeting emotion would be a mistake. The only thing I know is that after what happened with Donovan, I can no longer look at Victor with the same eyes. I feel guilty, but I also feel that my desire to be with someone who is a better match for me will never go away. And if I keep forcing this relationship, maybe the only thing I will achieve is to hurt him more in the future. That is all for now. I needed to vent and be completely honest. I know that many will judge me, but at least I am not keeping anything to myself. Update. I am back to tell what has happened because I feel I need to get it out of my system. In the last update I said that I had kissed Donovan and that I was trapped between guilt and excitement. Well, that line has already been crossed. I finally cheated on Victor. I am not going to sugarcoat things. After work, I went directly to Donovan's apartment. He had invited me several times, and although I always refused, this time I did not have the strength to say no. Maybe because deep down I had wanted it for a long time, maybe because I was tired of repressing my impulses. The apartment was impressive. It was in a central area with a panoramic view from the living room. Everything was decorated with good taste. Modern furniture, minimalist paintings, a kitchen equipped with the latest appliances. He told me that his father had given it to him temporarily while they were building a house for him in a private residential community. Hearing that, something inside me clicked. I do not know how to explain it, but being there, surrounded by that standard of living, with such a handsome and self-confident man, I felt at home. Inwardly, the first thing I thought was, this is the life I deserve. And from that moment on I stopped resisting. I gave myself to Donovan. It was not an impulsive mistake or an accident. I decided it consciously. And we did it not just once, but several times. That same night I felt alive, excited, desired in a way I did not remember having felt before. Everything I had been holding back was released at once. After that first time, there was no turning back. During that week I saw him almost daily. We would finish work and I would find any excuse not to go home directly. I would spend the afternoons or evenings at his apartment, and it always ended the same way, giving myself to him. I felt trapped in a cycle of desire that I did not want to break. Victor began to suspect. It was not hard to notice. My schedules changed. I would arrive later. I was distracted when we were together. He asked me directly if there was someone else, and instead of denying it, I remained silent. My silence said it all. I saw him break in front of me, and it was painful. He asked me why, what he had done wrong, if I did not love him anymore, and I did not know what to answer. It is not that he had done anything wrong, it is not that he had failed me. I simply felt that I was destined for something else, for another life. I told him I was sorry, that I did not want to hurt him, but that I could not lie to him either. He suffered a lot. I saw it reflected in his eyes, in the way he spoke, in how he avoided looking at me after that. But inside me there was a voice that kept repeating, "You are doing him a favor." I know it sounds cruel, but I really thought that, because in the end, if he always had insecurities about being with me, if he always felt that I was too much for him, then sooner or later this was going to happen. I just brought it forward. I feel guilty, yes, but I also feel good. I cannot deny the guilt when I remember Victor's face, but when I think of Donovan, the guilt dissipates and only the feeling of living something that fits me remains, as if I were finally in the right place, with the right person. Now I am at my parents' house. I needed space to sort out my thoughts and also to give Victor space. I have not gone back to him, nor do I think I will. The relationship, in fact, has already broken. There was not a big fight, there were no shouts. It was more of a silent, painful, but inevitable end. With Donovan, on the other hand, I feel like I am just beginning something. We have not yet talked about formalizing a relationship, but things are moving in that direction. I am almost sure that he will soon ask me to move in with him. I sense it in his words, in how he talks about his future, in how he mentions the house they are building in that private residential community. I find myself at a strange point. On one hand, I am overcome with guilt for having betrayed someone who loved me sincerely. On the other, I am marked by the excitement of feeling that I am now heading towards the life I always imagined. I know that for many this makes me the villain of the story. I know they will say I was selfish, that I played with Victor's feelings, that I humiliated him by trading him for someone more attractive and with more money. And maybe all of that is true. But I also know that I could not continue in a relationship where I felt dissatisfied, that sooner or later it was going to explode. The only thing that is clear to me now is that I cannot go back. I have made a decision, and although I still do not know how right the path I have taken is, it is the one I chose. I do not know if Donovan will end up being the partner who accompanies me for years, or if it will just be a phase. The only thing I know is that being with him I feel that everything that made me uncomfortable disappears. The insecurity, the comparisons, the feeling of wasting my beauty. With him I do not have to pretend because I feel exactly where I want to be. That is what has happened. Update. Hello again. I never thought I would be back writing here so soon, but what is happening has me confused, hurt, and with a feeling of emptiness that I cannot manage. Maybe I need to be told things straight, even if they are harsh, because right now I feel like I am paying the consequences of my own decisions. The last time I wrote, I was convinced that I had done the right thing, or at least what was necessary to feel fulfilled. I was sure that with Donovan I was building a new life, one that fit the image I always had of myself. It seemed obvious to me that that was the path, to leave Victor behind and bet on someone who made me feel desired, admired, and in a way on my level. But now everything feels different. Donovan does not invite me to his apartment as often anymore. The first few weeks, he sought me out almost daily. I was his priority. He was always attentive to me, and every encounter was intense. I felt like I was living a dream. But for a while now, things have changed. He has become more distant, busier. He makes excuses. He says he has work or commitments, and when I finally see him, it is not with the same intensity. At first, I thought it was my imagination, that he was just busier with his personal life. But then I noticed something that set off alarm bells. He is talking a lot with the new girl at the office. She started recently, and from the first day, everyone commented on how attractive she was. She is young, self-confident, friendly, and it did not take her long to integrate into the group. I saw how Donovan approached her, how they chatted in the hallways, how they laughed together in meetings. And although I tried to convince myself that it was a normal work interaction, deep down I felt jealous, the same kind of jealousy I would never have imagined feeling, because I believed that he and I were in a kind of unofficial but real relationship. Finally, I could not contain myself and I spoke with him. I asked him directly what was happening, if things had changed between us. He looked at me with his usual calm and told me something that hurt me more than I expected. Our thing was never a serious commitment. We made it clear from the beginning. It was something with no strings attached, without promises. I remained silent. Of course we had talked about it that way. Of course I myself accepted those rules, but over time I got my hopes up. I began to think that he and I were going to build something more, that he would soon ask me to move in with him, that apartment, and then the house in the residential community would also be my home. I fooled myself into believing that everything was pointing in that direction. It hurt me to hear him say it with such coldness. He did not do it in a cruel tone, he was just direct. For him, what we shared was intense, fun, but never a real commitment. And at that moment, I realized something. I had already fallen in love with him. That is my biggest mistake, having confused emotion with love. I clung to the idea that Donovan was the man I deserved, and now that he is showing me that he does not think the same, I feel empty. And the most ironic, the most contradictory thing, is that now I am starting to miss Victor. I miss his simple way of looking at me as if I were everything to him. I miss the small details that before seemed common to me, the coffee in the mornings, the sweet messages in the middle of the day, his way of listening to me without judging me. I miss the stability he gave me, the security of knowing that although he was not the most handsome or the richest, he was always there for me. Now I realize that with Donovan I felt dazzled, but never secure. It was a game of intense but fragile emotions. With Victor, on the other hand, everything was real and I let him slip away. I know that I created this situation myself. I was the one who opened the door, who let herself get carried away, who prioritized the superficial over the profound. No one else is to blame. What hurts me the most is that when I was with Donovan, I kept telling myself that I was doing Victor a favor by leaving him, that he deserved to be with someone who would not compare him to others. But now I see that it was not a favor, it was irreversible damage. I took away his trust, I hurt him in the deepest way, and maybe he will never recover from that. Meanwhile, Donovan continues with his life, flirting with the new girl, without showing a hint of remorse. For him, I was just one more experience, a passing chapter. And I, on the other hand, risked everything believing he was the great love of my life. Last night, while I was in my room at my parents' house, I started to cry, not for Donovan, although that hurts too, but for Victor. I saw myself in a mirror and asked myself at what point I became someone capable of destroying something so beautiful for an illusion. I remembered his face when he understood that I had betrayed him, and I felt like the worst person in the world. I do not know what to do now. I know that going to look for Victor would be unfair. He does not deserve me to show up in his life just because I discovered I made a mistake. He probably does not trust me anymore, and with good reason, but part of me wishes I could go back, stop myself before accepting the first outing with Donovan. Go back to those quiet afternoons where the only thing that mattered was watching a movie together or walking hand in hand. I never thought I would say it, but I feel like I made a serious mistake, and the worst part is that I cannot undo it. Update. Several weeks have passed since my life went downhill, and I still feel like I am falling without a clear bottom. Everything I did, everything I thought was fun, exciting, living in the moment, today weighs on me like a chain around my neck. Not a single day goes by that I do not wake up with a feeling of emptiness in my chest and guilt embedded in my bones. I started thinking a lot about Victor, about how he looked at me when I spoke, about how he laughed at my silly things, about how patient he was even when I had my bad moods. I remembered our long nights of talk, the times he supported me when no one else did, how he took care of me when I was sick, how safe he made me feel, and the truth hit me hard. I had let go of the only man who truly loved me, and all for a whim. The days passed slowly. Every time I went on social media, I would find some post from him. A photo with his friends, a new outing, a different smile. And there I was, feeling more miserable than ever, wondering if maybe there was still a chance, if I could still recover what I had destroyed. It took me weeks to gather the courage to do it. I told myself that Victor was good, that he had always had a big heart, that maybe, just maybe, he could forgive me. I prepared in my head what I was going to tell him over and over again, that I missed him, that I had made a mistake, that I still loved him, that I wanted to fix things. I cried several times practicing in front of the mirror because I knew it was not going to be easy. One Friday afternoon, with my hands shaking, I went to his house. I knocked on the door with my heart beating 1,000 times an hour. When he opened it, I saw him, and I do not know how to explain it, but he seemed different. It was no longer the same tender look as always. He looked at me with coldness, with a huge barrier between us. I tried to smile, I tried to start with something gentle, but as soon as I opened my mouth, tears began to run down my cheeks. I told him that I missed him, that I had thought about him all those days, that I regretted leaving him for someone who was not worth it, that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. He remained silent for a few seconds, staring at me. I took his hand, pleading with my eyes, begging him to give me a chance. I asked for forgiveness. I told him I knew I had shattered him, but that I really wanted to repair what I had done. And then he spoke. His voice was firm, harsh, with a coldness I had never heard in him. You may be very pretty, but you're a shitty person on the inside. I felt like my soul was being torn out in that instant. It was as if he had given me a direct slap to the heart. I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell him that it was not like that it had been a mistake, that I could still change, but he did not let me. He let go of my hand, closed the door in my face, and left me there trembling, crying, defeated. I stayed for several minutes in front of the door, crying like never before in my life. I knocked gently, I called him, I told him to please listen to me, not to leave me like this. But he did not open it again. And deep down I understood. He was right. I had brought all this upon myself. I myself had lost him. That night I could not sleep. I went over everything in my mind from the beginning. From the first moment, I let myself get carried away by the excitement of something new, and I understood something that hurts me more than anything. Victor was not boring, he was not monotonous, he was stable, he was true love. And I, being blind, confused stability with routine. Today I am writing this with swollen eyes and a heart in pieces. I do not have Donovan because I never really had him, and I do not have Victor either because I lost him forever. I am alone facing the consequences of my decisions. I regret it, yes, but it is no use anymore. There are mistakes that have no turning back, and I made the worst of all, letting go of the man who truly loved me for an empty illusion. I wish I could turn back time. I wish I could go back to that night when I decided to send a message I should not have, or that afternoon when I chose to go out with Donovan instead of talking to Victor. But you cannot. And now the only thing I have left is this regret that accompanies me like a shadow, reminding me every day that I destroyed my own happiness. Maybe one day I can forgive myself, but I know that Victor will not, and I understand. After all, I myself became what I never wanted to be, an empty, selfish person who hurt the one who loved her the most. And that will weigh on me always.